has arrived in Beirut, Lebanon, not too long ago and made some statements regarding Palestine. Take a look here at his arrival in Beirut and the celebration that was had for him. Like, here he is in his Pope mobile. So you get the gist of it. And he was asked regarding Palestine and a two-state solution. And although he's not as controversial, I would say, as Pope Francis, and Pope Francis was known to be incredibly supportive of Palestine, Pope Leo took a much more, quote, moderate, if you would say, by still supporting Israel, speech by stating he still supports a two-state solution and he's hoping for peace on both sides. So take a listen to what he had to say here.
The
Holy See has, for many years, publicly endorsed the proposal of a solution of two states. We all know that, in this moment, Israel does not accept that solution. But we see it as the only solution that could offer a solution to a conflict that is still live.
Una soluzione al conflitto che continuamente vivono. Noi siamo anche amici.
We are also friends of Israel, and we try with both sides to be a voice of mediation
Una voce mediatrice che
that can help get closer to a solution with justice for all.
We're friends of Israel. We're friends with the Nazis. I really don't see a difference. I'm going to be honest. I really don't see a difference. It doesn't make any sense to me. There is no difference when it comes to morality whatsoever in any way. Of course, we know, both sides know this. The Palestinians know this as well, that a two-state solution is dead because of the fact that Israel has made the West Bank into a Swiss cheese model with the amount of settlements. There are over 700,000, 800,000 settlers in the West Bank. The numbers just keep rising. Settlers have taken over all of the hilltops. Palestinians have checkpoints from every village. They have no freedom of mobility, don't have equal rights. Settlers that have Israeli citizenship carry weapons from the United States. So there's no two-state solution. It's pretty obvious. The difference here is that what Israel doesn't recognize is the more that it works to end the efforts of a two-state solution and end the prospects of a two-state solution, the more people are going to naturally be looking for alternatives. And it doesn't seem that Israel takes that into consideration. It thinks that the alternative would be to eventually just push all the Palestinians out into Syria and push the Palestinians in Gaza out to Egypt. It seems like that's what its larger aims and goals are. What it doesn't recognize is that eventually, the more that Israel tries to thwart the idea of a two-state solution, which has long been dead, people are going to naturally start talking about the idea of a one-state solution and a one-state reality much more often. And the last thing that Israel wants, something that Israel would choose a two-state solution over, would be a one-state solution with equal rights. Israel would rather have a two-state solution than a one-state solution with equal rights. Yet it doesn't realize that that's exactly where it's headed. A one-state solution where Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank both have the same exact freedom and the same exact rights as Palestinians that have Israeli citizenship that have been in Israel since 1947, that the same exact sort of freedom that Israelis had, that is Israel's worst fear. And why is it Israel's worst fear? Well, because the second that you give these Palestinian citizenship, Israel faces a demographic crisis. Now you have a Palestinian population that will very quickly become a majority, and it will end the Jewish majority state. There's no more Jewish state with a Palestinian majority. So that's what Israel fears. It's what Israel has feared for decades. It's what Israel has feared for decades. Now, with the current Trump administration, Israel can go rogue, and Donald Trump is basically just like an Israeli cuck. He's allowing Israel to do whatever they want. So Jonathan Pollard, the convicted Israeli spy that was in U.S. prison for 30 years, he did an interview on the Jerusalem Post last month where he stated that Syria is in no place to try to stop Israel from depositing and just dropping off the millions of Palestinians in the West Bank. That's Jonathan Pollard's idea. And of course, he's also running for an Israeli politics this upcoming year. So that's Jonathan Pollard, the Israeli spy that stole U.S. secrets. He, of course, is a very ultra right wing Israeli, but that makes up the majority of Israel's political establishment, ultra right wing that want to see the Palestinians out. So that's what's kind of going on within Israel. Okay. At the same time, we have politicians still endorsing the idea of a two-state solution as if that's not happening, while Israel literally just cut the West Bank in half a few months ago. They recognized and they approved of the E1 settlement plan. This has been the most controversial settlement plan for decades now, which is in the center of the West Bank near Jerusalem, where it basically cuts the Northwest Bank and Southwest Bank in half. So there's no freedom of mobility whatsoever. And it was done in order to thwart a two-state solution. Netanyahu said that himself. Smotrich said that himself. So that already happened. Apparently, that was a U.S. red line and that was a European red line for a very long time. But now that red line has been crossed and nobody seems to do anything about it, you would assume if it was actually an EU red line, the entire EU would have sanctioned Israel. The EU is the number one largest trading partner with Israel, more than the United States. It makes up about 29% of Israel's trade in goods. If the EU all took action against Israel, Israel would have to pull. If the EU told Israel, we will end full trade with you, complete cutoff of trade, until you accept a two-state solution and pull all of your forces out of the West Bank and Gaza, Israel would have to do it. No matter how badly Israel wouldn't want to, it would cause an economic crisis in Israel that it would have to do it. And Netanyahu has said this himself publicly back in 2019 during a speech. He said that if sanctions were placed upon Israel, Israel would have no choice but to capitulate and pull out of the West Bank and Gaza. So they know that very, very well, which is why their focus is on taking control and hijacking Western governments and purchasing Western politicians in order to make sure that that never happens. And if a government tries to put any sort of anti-Israel policy in place or anti-settlement policy in place that thwarts the possibility of a two-state solution, just like Ireland has recently, well, then it'll have its attack dog, the United States, push U.S. politicians to condemn that country and take action against that country, as we've seen the United States recently do with Ireland. So that is the situation that we're currently in. What I think just seems to be the flow of the river, where things are naturally headed, is that more governments are going to recognize Palestine. That's a given. We've already seen that happening. Now, regardless, it doesn't actually change the reality on the ground. And Israel is more powerful now than ever before. However, we also know U.S. support for Israel in the United States is rapidly dwindling. And once the boomers are out, so is support for Israel. That's just matter of fact. Israel is now going for a 20-year memorandum of understanding with the United States. We'd basically be supplying Israel for weapons for the next 20 years because it knows that it's losing U.S. support. But that's basically the tapestry of what's going on. Israel is losing American support, and it's going to have to become more independent. The world is beginning to harshly criticize and condemn Israel and take action against Israel while recognizing Palestine, while Israel is still going on a rogue campaign to expand, take over parts of Lebanon, Syria, eventually Jordan, even though Jordan is a puppet state right now. That's their long-term aim. How long can this go until Israel collapses? People think that it's impossible and they can't see something like that happening. But the truth of the matter is that all empires fall when they're at their largest and they're at their most expansive. You think Israel could keep doing what it's doing if it loses U.S. support? Absolutely not. Imagine for a second that these settlers get their way. They take southern Lebanon, they take Syria, they eventually take Jordan. There's a demographic problem there. It's expanding. Eventually, it's going to eat more than it can chew. And it's going to expand way too far. And it's simply not going to be able to handle that level of occupation, trying to maintain its borders, especially not with U.S. support. It seems very obvious that's where things are headed. The Israelis are in their own bubble right now. They don't recognize that. But the world is turning against Israel very, very quickly. And once the U.S. support slips away, things are going to change drastically and dramatically. we'll see how things unfold moving forward. If you found this video interesting, make sure to go ahead and click the subscribe button below and give this video a thumbs up